everybody, Lucha for Life here, bringing us a brand new archetype analysis. This time around, it's an Orcust. Orcust is, of course, one of the biggest decks of the current format, and one that a lot of people really like, including me. I love this deck. It's a lot of fun, and it's going to be really fun talking about it. And hey, guys, if you have fun watching the video and you like it, then please consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the little bell down there. It goes a long way to helping me out, and it's much appreciated. So, first and foremost, what the heck is Orcust all about? Well, they're all dark machines. They're very, very much a link-focused archetype. The main deck monsters, with the exception of one, special summon another monster from somewhere. One summons from deck, one summons from hand, one summons from graveyard. The extra deck monsters, though, are more focused on stunning and, well, plussing. Basically, generating advantage and recouping the losses of getting the dudes in the graveyard to be able to use their effects. One of the biggest strengths of this deck is the variety of builds. You can make Orcust work with a variety of different other archetypes and a plethora of generic cards out there. So, no two builds are truly the same, unless you net deck somebody, in which case I guess your build and their build is exactly the same. I don't know. Moving on, so first foremost monster, we got good old Orcust Brass Bombard. This dude is a level 1 machine tuner. It's a dark, 500 attack, 1900 defense. You can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon it on Orcust from your hand, except a copy of itself. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except for dark monsters. You can only use the effect of Brass Bombard once per turn. So, every single Orcust monster has the hard ones per turn, and all the main deck monsters lock you into dark monsters only for the rest of the turn. You can freely go into whatever you want before using their effects, but after you use one of their effects, you must summon only dark monsters. Now, Bombard summons from hand, which is pretty handy. Pardon the pun. It's really, really nice just being able to get another monster out of your hand and be able to continue on with your plays. Coupled with the fact that this thing is a level 1, and you can easily link it off just after a normal summon into like Link Crebo, and then use this effect from graveyard to summon another monster and set up for a Link 2 play, and then just continue on from there. Really, really good. Also, this thing's a machine dupe target. It's really, really stupid how you can just normal summon it, machine dupe, get out 2 more, and just go off from there. Heck, the deck has multiple machine dupe targets, which makes machine dupe an instant like 2 to 3 of in the deck, and can result in very, very outrageous plays in the archetype. Also, this thing is a tuner randomly, so you can make some really good synchro plays and play stuff like Beals or Void Ogre or other really good dark synchro monsters. Notice I'm specifically saying dark synchro monsters because you're going to be locked into darks, obviously. Now, of course, if you set up it right and you do things correctly, you could probably make like a Crystal Wing or something, or some other like really good level 8 synchro. But generally speaking, the best ones will be like Void Ogre, Beals, or the Borreload Savage Dragon, which is really, really good. Also, if you ever get Needle Fiber, this thing lets you play Needle Fiber in the deck, and there's no reason not to. So, yeah. Also, even without Needle Fiber, I still say this thing's a 3 of. It's just really, really good. Opens up a lot of plays. It can be dead sometimes if you don't open multiple Orcusts, but it's not that hard to get them in the hand. Moving on, we got Orcust Symbol Skeleton. This thing is a level 3, 1200 attack, 1500 defense, dark machine. You can banish this card from your graveyard, target an Orcust in your graveyard, special summon it. You can't target itself, so yeah, obviously. Like with the others, it locks into dark, and it's a hard once per turn. Really good effect. It's a monster reborn, and it can summon any Orcust. The fact that it can summon any Orcust, not just the main deck monsters, is what really makes this thing stupid. Because you can bring back your Lynx, or more importantly, you can bring back the Xyz monster. Yeah, this deck has an Xyz monster randomly. So, yeah, very, very good card all around, and I highly recommend playing 3 as well. It's also got really good stats, and if you do play like the Phantom Knight engine in the deck, since it's a level 3, you can make rank 3s a bit easier with it in the Phantom Knights. Moving on, we got Harp Horror. Quite honestly, I believe to be the best of the main deck Orcusts. God, this thing is stupid. So, it's just, you banish it from the graveyard, summon an Orcust from deck. It's that simple. You can't summon another copy of itself, and it's a hard once per turn, locks into darks. But you don't care. You're getting a monster from the deck. It's really, really good. Just banish it, summon a dude from the deck, continue on. It's I don't know what else to say. It's a summon from the deck. It's a lone fire. Play 3. Good stats, too. 1700 attacks, nothing to shake at. Then we got Orcust Knightmare. This thing is stupid. So, It cannot be destroyed by battle with a link monster, and you can banish this card from your graveyard and target a face-up monster in the field. You cannot summon monsters except for dark monsters for the rest of this turn. Also, send one Dark Machine monster from your deck to the graveyard, except a copy of Orcust Knightmare. And if you do, the targeted monster gains attack equal to the level of the monster sent to the graveyard times 100 until the end of this turn. You can only use one effect of Orcust Knightmare once per turn. This thing is a level 7 with 100 attack and 2000 defense. And of course, it's a Dark Machine. This card is insane for what it allows the deck to do. Not only is it a Foolish Burial, but it can also help you OTK a bit easier. But the main thing is that it's a... It's a Foolish Burial, and it's another machine with less than 500 attack points, which means it's another machine dupe target. And of course, as I mentioned earlier with Bombard, this thing with Bombard lets you make all sorts of really good synchro plays. Heck, if you happen to get Knightmare out on the field, machine dupe it, bring out 2 more from the deck, and then you summon Bombard, you can easily end on a board with multiple negates, including a Borreload Savage Dragon. It's really, really stupid how good this thing is. I do, however, have to forewarn that it can be bricky, which is why you often don't see people play any more than 2 of it. Although personally, I play 3 of it because I just roll like that. It is a really good card, and it's, again, like, you don't really have to worry about bricks too much because you can summon it from hand with Bombard and you can summon it from deck with Harp Horror. But I do see why people would recommend playing 2 over 3. It's just an overall really good card. Then we got World Legacy World Wand. This, I know it's technically not exactly a Orcust card, but like with the other World Legacy archetypes, they have a corresponding World Legacy, and we gotta talk about them, especially since more than any other World Legacy archetype, World Legacy World Wand is absolutely essential to the Orcust strategy. So, World Legacy World Wand, it's a level 8, 500 attack, 2500 defense, machine, dark monster. And it has several effects, but really, in all honesty, the only 2 that matter is its 2 activated effects. If this card is in the graveyard, you can banish itself from your graveyard and target one of your banished Orcust monsters, special summon it. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn, except for dark monsters. And if it's sent to the graveyard, you can summon another World Legacy from your hand, which is pretty good. It does have a third effect where the normal summoned or set card cannot be destroyed in battle with a monster of a special summon from the abstract. But that doesn't come up ever. It's got 2500 defense already as it is. I don't know of many monsters that can run it over that people play, honestly. So, yeah, you don't really need to worry about that first effect. It's just simply the effects to special summon an Orcust from Banished and summon another World Legacy from your hand. Also, this is one of the few World Legacies that can interact with another copy of itself. So if you do get it in the graveyard, you can summon another copy from your hand. Due to this, I highly recommend playing anywhere between 1 and 3. It's really, really difficult. I've seen some people play 1, I've seen some people play 2, and I've even seen some people play 3. It's a really, really good card. It's another machine dupe target, which gives you 3 of them, which is just insane with how many machine dupe targets you do have. And again, it's recursion. It summons another Orcust from your banish zone and gets them back in a graveyard and allows you to make more plays. It's another really good card for the archetype, and I can't help but recommend playing anywhere between 1 and 3. I don't think you shouldn't play it at all. Like, you really do need to play any number of it, whatever you feel is correct. Moving on, we got the extract monsters, starting off with Galatea, the Orcust Automaton. The really, really, really good starter card for the deck. So it points top right and bottom left, super weird arrows, as with all of the Orcust link monsters, in all honesty. It needs 2 effect monsters, including at least one Orcust monster. This link card cannot be destroyed by battle. You can target one of your banished machine monsters, shuffle it into the deck, and then you can set 1 Orcust spell or trap card directly from your deck. You can only use this effect of Galatea once per turn. This is a really, really, really good card overall. Just instantly gets you access to the spells and traps of the archetype, and of course puts your dudes back in the deck so you can use them again later. Really good card overall. It can even target your links if they get banished somehow. So yeah, I definitely recommend playing anywhere between 2 and 3 of her, especially since she's the main starter card of the deck. Moving on, we got Ningrisu, the Orcust Orchestrator. God, that, just onomatopoeia of the name. Okay, it's a link 3 with top left and top pointing arrows, as well as also bottom right. Needs 2 or more effect monsters, including an Orcust monster. This linked card cannot be destroyed by card effects. That's actually rather important in certain builds. You can target 2 of your banished machine monsters, shuffle them into the deck, and send one. Then you can send 1 linked monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. This card cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. You can only activate one. You can only use 1 effect of Ningrisu once per turn. So basically, as a hard once per turn effect, you can shuffle 2 of your banished machines back into your deck, and then send a linked monster from the field to the graveyard. That can be monsters that he's pointing to, or that can be a monster that like your opponent's monsters are pointing to. Just send them from field to graveyard. I think I said deck by accidentally. No, field to graveyard that a monster is pointing to. So really good effects overall. I recommend 1 to 2 of them depending on your build and what you have in your extra deck. The extra deck space for Orcust gets kind of tight, so it depends on what you feel is better. Moving on, we got Orcustrion, the boss monster of the deck, and it's a scary one. He points top right and bottom left and bottom. 2 or more effect monsters, including at least 1 Orcust monster. This linked card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. You can target 3 of your banished machine monsters, shuffle them into the deck, and if you do, the attack and defense of any linked monsters your opponent controls currently controls becomes 0. Also, their effects are negated. That is permanent, by the way. This thing is a scary boss monster. It's incredibly powerful and can easily win you games. It's an incredibly powerful monster, especially when combined with the other Link monsters and the Xyz monster, which we'll cover next. This thing is scary, it's powerful, and it can win you games very, very easily. Yeah, I can only recommend playing 1. He's not the easiest thing to make. You generally gotta like link up. You gotta like make Altea to make Ningrisu to make him. That's generally how you gotta go about it. And you're not always going to have your opponent's monsters being linked. They might not be playing that many link monsters, or they might be smart and not really have stuff linked often that much. That being said, I've even seen some builds that don't play them at all, so generally speaking, I recommend at least playing 1 as a really good boss monster for the deck. Of course, many would say that the Xyz monster is the true boss monster of the deck. This is Ningrisu, the Orcust of the Evening Star. This thing is stupid. It's a level 8 monster, rank 8 monster, needs 2 level 8s to go into, although you don't have to worry about that. It's 2600 attack, 2100 defense. Okay. You can only special summon Ningrisu, the Orcust of the Evening Star, once per turn. You can also Xyz summon this card by using 1 Orcust link monster you control as material. If a card you control would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can detach 1 material from this card instead. If this card is special summoned, you can activate 1 of these effects. Send 1 card your opponent controls to the graveyard. Attach 1 of your banished machine monsters to this card as material. So, you can only summon 1 copy of them per turn. Okay. And then, while he's out on field, if any of your Orcust would die, you can just detach and Xyz instead. Or sorry, if any card you control would die, you can detach Xyz material instead. Okay, so blanket protection for everything. And then, whenever he's summoned, you can either just send a card your opponent controls to the graveyard. Doesn't pop, and your opponent doesn't choose. It doesn't destroy, doesn't target. There's non-targeting, non-destruction, spot removal on any 1 card your opponent has. And then, or you can just get some recursion going. This thing is stupid. It's broken almost, I would say. It's not completely broken, honestly, but this thing is powerful. It can just absolutely break games. It can make a comeback. The fact that it triggers on any special summon, not just its Xyz summon, so if you make it, send something to graveyard, and then use a Symbol Skeleton's effect to bring it back later on, you can send another thing to the graveyard, because it's on any special summon. This thing is really, really, really powerful, and can win you games rather easily when combined with, well, the other aspects of the deck. For instance, what really, really makes the deck. Orchestrated Babble. And this is their field spell. You can only activate 1 per turn, and, well, kind of. It's kind of weird. So, you can activate the effects of Orcust monsters in your graveyard, or of Link monsters you control with their effects, with Orcust in their names, as quick effects. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, it's at the turn it was sent to, you can send a card from your hand to the graveyard, add this card to your hand. And that's the card effect that I was kind of referring to as only once per turn, but I kind of screwed up. So, this makes all of your Orcust monsters quick effects. The ones that are in the graveyard, and the Orcust Link monsters that you have on the field. What? This thing is so good. It literally just makes a quick effect. So, Orcustron can negate everything during your opponent's turn. Ningrisu or Longirisu, that's what his name was, can send during your opponent's turn. Galatea can search during your opponent's turn. And then you can also flood the field during your opponent's turn. It gets around their locks that lock you into stuff, and also gets around their once per turn clauses. This thing is stupid good for the deck, and it self-recurs itself. So, due to the fact that it self-recurs itself, you only really need to play one. I do occasionally recommend playing two, or at least one in the side, because if your opponent banishes it, you're kind of screwed, but you only really need one for the deck, because it's searchable off Galatea, and then if it gets in the graveyard, you can just ditch a card to add it from your graveyard to your hand. This thing is really, really good, and very much helps out the deck a lot. And heck, if it wasn't for Babel, I would say this deck would be just kind of okay instead of one of the best decks in the format at the moment. Moving on, we got Orchestrated Return. Send an Orcust from your World Legacy monster from your hand or field to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. You can only activate 1 Orchestrated Return per turn. This card, it's literally a D-draw. It's a really, really good card overall. Just gets you some draws, gets your monsters in your graveyard. And, I mean, there's not much more to say about it, other than it being a hard once per turn. Due to it being hard once per turn, and the fact that it's searchable off Galatea, and most people only play 1, but I have seen people play 2 to 3 of it, so it really comes down to your personal preference. It's a draw card, and it's once per turn, just comes down to what you want to play. Then we got Orcustrated Einsatz. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but I think I'm pronouncing it right. It's a continuous spell. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can take 1 Orcust or World Legacy monster from your hand or deck and either send it to the graveyard or banish it. You can only use this effect of Orcustrated Einsatz once per turn. If this thing could trigger multiple times, or if you could have multiple of them out and trigger them, I'd feel more comfortable recommending this card on a consistent basis. Right now, though, I feel like it's really best as a one-of. It does set up your graveyard, and it does also, of course, set up your banish zone, so you can use your Orcust Link monster effects more commonly. The only issue is that it's a hard once per turn, and it doesn't have a recursion effect. Why does this thing not have a recursion effect like the field spell? I really feel like that would have made this card a lot better and easier to recommend playing. I haven't seen too many of the main builds that people are taking big time regionals and stuff playing this card, so it really comes down to your personal preference and if you really want to use it. The biggest issue is that you got to rely on your opponent to do something to get a card in your graveyard. So yeah. Moving on, we got the traps, and oh boy, I'm not gonna lie, not a single one of the traps were good until the most recent one. So we got Orchestrated Attack. When a monster clears an attack, tribute an Orcust or World Legacy monster, then target one monster your opponent controls, banish it. This thing is a D-Prison, but worse. D-Prison doesn't target, this thing targets. D-Prison doesn't need you to attribute a monster, this thing does. But, however, this thing lets you target any monster your opponent controls, not just the one that's attacking. I don't know why you wouldn't get rid of the one that's attacking, but I digress. Just play Mirror Force if you want to get rid of multiple monsters your opponent controls. In all honesty, I get it that it's supposed to get your Orcust in the graveyard, and then that's supposed to help you get them out on the field and stuff with their effects, but there's better and faster and easier ways of getting stuff in your graveyard. Just play Mirror Force if you need defense. Moving on, we got Orchestrated Core. Once per turn, it's a continuous trap, by the way. Once per turn, you can banish one monster from your field or graveyard, then target an Orcust or World Legacy card you control, except Orchestrated Core. Neither player can target it with card effects this turn, even if this card leaves the field. If other Orcust and or World Legacy cards you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. This thing makes up decent protection. I'm not gonna lie. Just being able to banish a dude from your graveyard or field to be able to protect your field spell or your Einsatz from being targeted is pretty nice. And then of course if your Orcust stuff would die, you can just send it to the graveyard instead. That being said, there's not much of a reason to play this card. You gotta neg yourself, generally speaking, or banish stuff in your graveyard when you'd much rather be able to save those cards in order to, well, be able to protect the card from targeting once per turn. If this was not a once per turn, you could just banish multiple stuff and be able to easily load up your graveyard for Orcustron or Galatea's effects, or heck, banish your Link monsters, which you can, obviously. I think that's really what it wants you to do, is banish some Links so you can recycle them with other copies of the Links. I just wish it did more. It does protect from targeting, and it does protect from destruction, but really you're better off just playing other protection cards. There's better cards out there that can do what this thing does. Moving on, we got Orchestrated Release. Amazing artwork, by the way. I love this card's artwork. Too bad it sucks. Tribute 2 machine monsters and target a monster in your graveyard. Special summon it. If your opponent controls a link monster, you can target 2 instead. It's a once per turn. So, unless my opponent controls a link monster, I gotta neg myself to summon any monster from a graveyard. But if my opponent controls a link monster, I still gotta neg myself to summon 2 monsters. I don't like this card at all. It's a trap card. It's slow. It's not good. It really just doesn't help out much in the long run. I don't recommend this card at all. Moving on, we got the actually good trap, Orcust CRESCENDO. It's a counter trap and says as follows. When a spell or trap card or a monster effect is activated while you control an Orcust link monster, negate the activation. If you do, banish that card. You can banish this card from your graveyard, add it to your hand, or, well, yeah, to your hand, one of your Dark Machine monsters that is banished or in your deck. You cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect, except for Dark Machines. You don't use one Orcust CRESCENDO effect per turn and only once that turn. So CRESCENDO can either negate a card effect once per turn, or you can banish a copy from your graveyard to search or recur. Stupid good card. It's an Infernity barrier with a twist, and I love it. Okay. Oh, your opponent tries to do something, negate. Okay, my turn, pass around, CRESCENDO effect, search. Good card, amazing. I love it. Just play 1 to 2 of it because it's searchable and you can easily get to it. And of course, also you can only use 1 effect of it per turn. So it really comes down to you typically only need 1 of it, and you don't want to draw into it because then it can just be a dead card for your combos. So, outside support, Knightmares are really, really good for Orcust especially because of good old Orchestrated Nightmare. Being a Nightmare monster, you can just make Mermaid and then use Mermaid's effect to discard a card and special summon Orchestrated Nightmare from your deck. Due to this, a lot of people play Neo Space Connectors or Pathfinder. I can't remember what his name is in TCG. Summon Aquadolphin, maybe use Aquadolphin's effect to get an Orcust in graveyard. And, you know, get a peek at your opponent's hand, make like a Nightmare Phoenix or something, and then make Mermaid to be able to discard a card, preferably another Orcust, in order to summon Orchestrated Nightmare from deck. That can be really, really stupid and is pretty consistent, especially since, typically speaking, you want to play Armageddonite and Dark Grepher, as those are both really good starter cards, and you're probably already going to be playing Reinforcements of the Army to play those, and just, yeah. Also, the Topologic monsters are kind of like the deck's unofficial boss monsters. Most notably, Topologic Bomber Dragon and Topologic Zero Vorus. Heck, before the Orcust CRESCENDO and the Ningrisu, Bomber Dragon was like the most common build of the deck, because thanks to the Orcust monsters being able to be quick effects, you can easily summon multiple monsters to Bomber Dragon's link arrows to trigger his effect to pop all monsters in the main monster zones to basically effectively prevent your opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And then, of course, if you had like Ningrisu or whatever his name is, Ningrisu actually, underneath good old Bomber Dragon, Ningrisu wouldn't be destroyed by Bomber Dragon's destruction because, of course, Ningrisu can't be destroyed by card effects, so pointed to a monster. So, yeah, the Topologics are definitely really good side boss monsters for the deck, especially when we get Zero Vorus, who just banishes everything on field. It's kind of nutty. Trisbana is really good against back row heavy decks, but is not typically ran because you want to keep your field spell from getting banished. So, what are my overall thoughts on Orcust? I really like this deck. It's objectively the best of the World Legacy archetypes, and it allows for a lot of interesting combos and plays. My biggest issue is the deck, I fear, has kind of gotten a little too good for what it does, and is very much possibly in the crosshairs of Konami for the ban list in the future. I don't think it needs to get hit at the moment, but it is a potential hit later on. I don't really know what they might hit other than maybe like just banning Grepher or something. I don't know. Be interesting to see what they do. What do you guys think of Orcust? What do you guys think of this video? Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. If it's your birthday, happy birthday, and see you all later. Peace out.